Kuvira's fleet has 8 ships in this shot, but then in this following shot we only see 7, unless this much more strikingly white thing is one of them also.
I'll contact President Raiko. He'll send the United Forces.
Thinking more on the United Forces, right? Okay, so we're now clear on the fact that Republic City is a 5th nation with their own military named the United Forces. The term United Forces tends to make you instantly think that it's a military comprised of soldiers and resources from the 4 nations put together, right? Easy mistake to make, I made it myself. But what makes that conclusion even easier to make upon further thought is the fact that General Iroh is a part of it, right? AKA, as far as we know, the Crown Prince to the Fire Nation? What the hell is that guy doing being the general in a foreign nation's army? Kuvira's airships have now doubled to 16, and also I get comments saying that these things are blimps, but I'd never call these things blimps. They're hulking, sharply designed, and seemingly heavily armored aircraft. These are fantasy aircraft, unlike anything we've ever had, or unlike anything probably possible. Kuvira has straight up tanks, and not even like the Caterpillar tanks or anything. Thinking about how Kuvira's resources must have worked, how did her movement really get up and off the ground? Her campaign must have started from Zaofu, with her support being primarily from Su, you would assume, but this episode shows us later that she doesn't have Su's support right from the get-go. Once she started her campaign and started taxing the people she's united, that would make sense to fund her goals, but without any backing from Su or the Earth Kingdom government, since it didn't exist at the time, how did she even get her movement rolling? How the fuck did he do that? I can never get those things. It's cool that the land that Republic City takes up is sort of just over here, ominously unfilled, but still on Kuvira's map.
Woohoo! Avatar fight! This is going to be awesome!
Come on, I just need a clear shot.
What?
Fire!
Okay, I'm Varric of Varric Industries International, and this is Spirit Vine Experiment 3-02.
302. What does this episode have to do with a headband? Interesting.
In this stasis capsule is a preserved spirit vine sample weighing approximately 2 joules.
2 joules? How dense is this thing?
These spirit vines are a form of pure energy that's unstable in what we call typical Earth conditions.
Varric describes these vines as being unstable in normal Earth conditions, but they seem strikingly stable if you ask me. They just chill for the most part.
This machine should transfer the energy from the vine into a battery using electrical currents, reverse magnetic polarity.
This is the second time Varric has shown interest in reverse magnetic polarity. The first was written into the Nuktuk finale.
Juji is fine. He comes back to life in the end when the Doomsday device shifts the polarity of the Earth.
As there seems to be a small breach or reaction to the machine, we get a much quieter version of Vatu's spirit cannon in the background. Very nice, right before hearing the great big one.
Too heavy! You know, you could stand to lose a few joules.
Alright, now with the knowledge that joule does not equal even 1 joule in weight, we can try to calculate how much 1 joule is, with the extremely scientific procedure of eyeballing it. Based on its dimensions and the estimated density of the vine, and the given statistic of it weighing approximately 2 joules, I conclude that 1 joule is equivalent to exactly 5.75 pounds. I'd like this to be peer-reviewed. Please leave your conclusions in the comments.
Varric, you saved me.
Of course I saved you.
Despite not liking Varric very much, I'm much more interested in this than I ever was with Jinora and Kai. Jinora and Kai are just both so bland. At least Varric makes me feel something.
Do you realize what we can do with this kind of power?
Yes, I do! And that's why we gotta put an end to it.
Speaking of Varric, they try to push his character in a better direction this season, and I can appreciate that. I think a big part of why Varric doesn't work for me is because he's just so one thing. He's the eccentric, fast-talking, wacky guy that's always out to make a buck, morals be damned. He's always running a scam or a scheme, and that's all he ever really is. So giving him more of a conscience this season and giving him that extra dimension is certainly a step in the correct direction.
Sorry? No. I just really gotta stand my ground on this one. Whoa!
Now there's a voice in my head telling me to drop you on the tracks.
Kuvira is Darth Vader. Anyone else notice this extremely subtle detail? This also comes back to the point of stop wearing metal if you're around metal benders. It's Kuvira's army and she can make her subordinates' uniforms whatever she wants, but why does Kuvira also wear metal? You're just asking for it. I agree with the show. We do need a little more bite out of Kuvira at this point. She needs to be a little more evil if the show's gonna really cast her as a straight-up villain. But, I don't know, I feel like the trope of a leader abusing/killing their underlings is sort of overused and a bit too on the nose. It's like kicking over a kid's sandcastle. It's like, come on.
Asami, you came.
Hiroshi's lost a pretty good amount of weight in the years since his imprisonment. The second time the show tells us that going to prison will improve your body. Interesting.
Please, just let me say one thing, then I'll never contact you again. I can't forgive myself for all the horrible things I've done. And I never expect you to forgive me. I tore our family apart and destroyed our good name.
Well, Hiroshi seems to be penitent for his crimes back in Season 1, and I guess if that's the case, he probably wouldn't do them again. Reformation is the goal of the prison system. Good job, Avatar prison system. You're one for all the Red Lotus didn't fix them, and then Iroh, and then Mako a bunch, and Asami, Bolin too. Katara and Toph definitely weren't reformed, and then there's Hakoda and Zuko and Suki and Chit Sang. I don't know, you're one for like a million.
Sue has some resentment towards me and Batar that might cloud her judgment and stop her from making a wise decision. We believe you can help her see clearly.
Were Bolin and Sue ever really that tight? She believed in him the couple times he needed it and paid him a compliment for being a lava bender, but are they really close enough where this plan makes sense?
You must realize what you're doing goes against everything your father and I tried to teach you.
Son, you belong here.
Why? So that I can go on living in your shadow.
Now he's accomplished more with me than he ever could have with you.
This probably plays into Kuvira's own feelings. She acted when Sue wouldn't and was clearly always beneath Sue in her own city. Kuvira moved out of Sue's shadow and accomplished more than she ever could have with her, just like Batar Jr. did with his father, or so they say. Probably one of the reasons Kuvira managed to get so close to him.
They might have been happy when you first arrived, but I've seen what happens after you leave. Citizens are forced to work as slave labor. Dissenters are sent off to who knows where.
Slave labor? Mysterious face for dissenters? Where'd all this info come from? Kuvira would be far less of an option to the viewer in the previous episodes if we knew this. We're kinda rapidly cascading into Kuvira just being evil, so we don't have to think very hard, which sucks because the start of the season was so interesting because of the fact there was stuff to think about. I know we need an antagonist in this season, I know, but it really felt like Kuvira was gonna be the first antagonist in Korra that could be an antagonist and not necessarily have to be a villain as well. And I think that could have been pretty interesting.
I see it! Zaofu! We made it! And a bunch of other people are here, too.
Kuvira only has 5 airships now in this shot. Oh god, it's beginning to multiply! I get Kuvira having books on her desk, but why did Toph have books on her desk?
When people don't cooperate, we must find other ways of convincing them to join.
Other ways? How many times have we used these other ways in the past?
And see, yeah, it sucks, because at least a handful of your average viewer is going to be exactly like Bolin here. With the information we had on Kuvira, it seemed like she would be a reasonable choice for a leader. Not a perfect choice, but a reasonable one. But now that we have the information of all this harm she's actually doing, the conflict becomes a lot less interesting. And just like Bolin, we're like, maybe I don't find you reasonable anymore?
Maybe you need to spend some time in a re-education camp.
I thought that's where we send people to learn new trade skills.
Like, she's sending people to re-education camps, bro. Can this be more coded as completely out of their shit, power-hungry, corrupt villain any harder? Damn it, man, they almost had something cool.
How did things get so bad between you and Kuvira? I thought she was your protege.
She was more than that. She was like a daughter to me.
Sue's always lamenting her relationships with people in this courtyard, huh?
The Earth Kingdom is in chaos. There's a vacuum of power, and I'm concerned about what will happen if someone doesn't take control of the situation.
And do you think I should be the one?
You're the perfect person to take charge. The world leaders trust you.
You know what's pretty striking about this episode is that it's taking itself so consistently seriously. Even the scenes with Bolin don't let him fly off the handle too much with some wacky random thing to say. I like it a lot. The show as a whole has a feeling to me that the creators really wanted to make something more serious with a more adult tone, but due to it being broadcast on Nickelodeon, we still need the funny cutaways and the characters to diffuse the tension. There was last episode with the kids, but that felt strangely detached from the rest of the show, like I mentioned. It just seemed like it was a procession of scenes, like there was less care taken with it. But overall, this season has much less of it. The weird goofiness that doesn't really fit, and maybe that's one of the probably many reasons that the back half of the season didn't even get to air on TV. More evil droning as Kuvira decides to be evil.
I didn't realize at the time. Kuvira and Batar left that day with Varric.
So she brought Varric because the show has started casting him in this mad scientist light, I guess. We did have that magnet suit moment last season, but has Varric really been seen as a man of science before this? An innovator, sure, but not really. He's just a businessman. But now he's cooking up super weapons?
I want to fix this.
You can. Go into the Avatar state and demolish her army.
Thank you. Yes, say it louder for the people in the back. The last 2 seasons could have been 1 episode each after Korra just found someone to point the Avatar state at.
Fighting is something the old me would do. But that always made things worse.
No, you never got the chance to do it. And if you're referring to all the times you fought and things did get worse, it's only because you lost. Asami sits by statue of Korra when feeling emotionally distressed.
There's something important I gotta tell you.
Well, there's something important I gotta tell you too. Kuvira!
Kuvira's crazy!
These two have been working for this lady for 3 years and have both had this opportunity to come to this conclusion within a day of each other. That implies that Kuvira's only really been going psycho leader just now. But from what the rest of the season has been telling us, Sue's family is aware of the horrible actions that have been taking place, and the world leaders are uneasy with her power even before she declared the Earth Empire. I find it hard to believe there wasn't some willful ignorance going on over these 3 years, which works great for Varric actually, believe that no problem, but giant teddy bear, heart of gold Bolin?
We gotta get out of here.
I couldn't agree more, kid.
Julie helps people through hatches just like Aang does. Oh, sorry, this is an entire other list I'm doing about why Julie is actually the reincarnation of Aang. It's not very robust yet.
You can't come to me as I'm on the verge of reuniting my nation and tell me to stop. The world was descending into chaos while you were gone. In order to fix it, I had to make some tough decisions.
Kuvira touches on a pretty important ongoing theme of Korra in general here that runs through the entire show that I've been holding back on commenting on. The idea that the Avatar as a power in the world has run its course, and the world doesn't need the Avatar anymore. It's a constant thought throughout the entire show, which is an interesting contrast to Airbender, where the entire world was constantly screaming at Aang that they needed him. Gather your own thoughts on this matter, and we'll reconvene on the topic in a later video. Well, at least Kuvira has some mechs that look less purposely evil, or maybe that was just some particularly evil lighting. No, because this is the same lighting, and these do seem to be the more evil-looking ones. Not one officer clocked these mechs walking into the woods. Not one person, period, saw it and thought it was worth reporting to someone. Usually I'm a proponent of the 3D elements looking pretty good, being blended in a way that doesn't take me out of the show. But here, where it's traditionally 2D animated inside of a 3D element, man, this shit looks uncanny. Damn, Julie got hands. Oh, hard to catch, but this punch actually has a secondary hit of a pile bunker that's attached to the mech's arms. Classic mecha stuff right there. I feel like this first Bolin grunt should be timed with him rolling backwards, but it's way too early. It reads a little weird when you watch it back. The metal bending tethers make perfect sense to my ape brain in this show for the humans, but these giant hulking battle suits, despite being pretty fleet of foot by the looks of them, it doesn't read very well. Bolin is among the few canonical woodbenders as well. Wow, what a talent. See, now there's a good use for the tethers. That was pretty tight. Finally, some lava bending out of Bolin. You nearly forget that he is one at this point. I know he's the type of guy that would never want to hurt anyone, but like, come on, if you're gonna give it to him, at least let him use it. Also, a very rare time I comment on a headcanon that is not my own here, but the fandom came up with the idea years ago now that Bolin is at least more likely to be a lava bender due to being an earthbender that has a fire-bending parent. No way to tell if that was the case with Ghazan as well, but I gotta say, I find that idea just downright agreeable. I think that's a cool concept and doesn't do any harm to anything. Good job, internet.
Stop! Turn yourself over, or else.
Or else what? You pop Varric's head like a water balloon? Go ahead. What good is this guy to the good guys, really? And your dumbass glorious leader needs him.
I wanted my words to hurt you so that you would know how you hurt me.
I'm sorry.
For me, at this point, allow me my grandeur, professional Asami dismisser, finding a way to have a more character-driven little side story for her was a great idea. She gets more to do than have machines that fly and do a cool taser glove attack once every 6 episodes. Her stuff feels pretty disconnected from the rest of the show. Whenever we cut to her, it's sort of like an oh yeah, right moment, but it seems like they're trying more with her at least.
I thought we could play some Pai Sho.
Aren't you like a millionaire? You can't afford a standard Pai Sho board? Look at the edges, they're all jacked up. Or is this like an artisanal Pai Sho board? Asami just lays down the board with no tiles here, but then it seems like Hiroshi just starts playing as if there are tiles. And also, hey, excuse me, Asami is visiting you, and as we all know, Pai Sho etiquette is that the guest gets the first move.
The guest has the first move.
I was blindly devoted to Varric, and I looked past all the times he ridiculed me, or ordered me around, or made me clean his disgusting feet. Because I thought he possessed the most brilliant mind in the world.
They're really pushing this idea that Varric is some sort of mad genius, so much so that it was Julie's fake motivation for working with him. But seriously, in the comments, can you tell me, did you ever get that vibe before the show just started telling you it?
I did everything you ever asked of me, and you never appreciated it. Guards! Do the thing.
Got his ass. It's a step back in the right direction this episode for sure. I like the tone the show is striking. This is a serious conflict and all parties are taking it seriously. And the episode is pretty dense as far as information communicated and actions taken go, so there isn't really any time for the show to be goofy. I love Avatar's humor when it hits. I even think it's one of the X factors for these shows when it does work that makes them so great. But for the last while, it seemed less well integrated into the show. It clashes more. So if given a choice for a show that's just serious or a show that's serious that shoots shoots its tone in the foot a couple times an episode out of nowhere, well, that's a pretty easy pick for me. At the same time, this episode kind of uncomplicates things in a not very interesting way. Kuvira has become the straight-up villain. The characters we like have taken notice of this and are working their way to being back on side. It's not that the conflict still isn't a good one and an interesting one, but I do think this episode has certainly made it less interesting. Patreon shoutouts if you want to see the next 2 episodes of Overanalyzing Korra ahead of the YouTube releases. You can support me on Patreon for just a few bucks. Link, as always, is in the description below the video. Biggest shoutouts of all go to my top patrons, Blanco, who was cloned so science could study their insane good looks, but whenever you look at their cells in a microscope, you get flashbanged. Cameron Lowry, who got a concussion as a kid and ever since can telepathically communicate with other people that have concussions. Gene Cree, who actually levitates an eighth of an inch off the ground at all times. They just mime walking to not stand out too much. LM the RMT, who can shapeshift in anything that starts with the letter V in the English language. Matthew Lang, who bought a watch from a weird old cackling woman in an alley, and now it's always the time they guess it is before looking at the watch. Potato Scream, who thought up the one thing that is somehow the answer to every riddle, but the average human mind can't handle thinking of it, so just don't ask him about it. The Former Meaning of Life, who was immune to earthquakes somehow. The 1 a.m. Party, who spends almost half their day every day meditating. You conspiracy theorists think 5G is bad? They're holding back both 7 and 8G for you by themselves. 6G, it turns out it's mostly innocuous. Vector, who I saw make an air cavity underwater by simply flexing their pectoral muscles. Whitrow, who I saw parry a bullet with a dueling rapier. And WowDude87, who can survive most neurotoxins by counteracting them by thinking about that Paper Plane song. And of course my other Fuck You Money patrons, A Sack of Pancakes, Anthony Collins, Jacob Lickman, Lewis Williams, Liquor Cause I Know Her, Knights by Satire, Omega Fighter, Tater of Tots, and That One Turian. And my god overanalyzers, Two Boots Are Beat, Ang, Alan Garvin, Andrew Watchert, Onzio Ruiz, Opataro, Axolotl Syndicate, Blade Dancer, Carlo Wren, Chandler Crump, Cosmic Newbie, Derek Chapman, Dr. Xerox, Dominic Saint, Emma, Aaron Grace, Fire Lizard 44, I'm a Match, Jackson, Jeremy Rubenstein, JCare4215, John Ojaka, Justin Scott, Mac, Mason Garman, Medium D Speaks, Michael Fellon, Mitchell Gobrecht, Nick, Nicholas Abbott, Peter Bandera, Peter Bayron, Pogger White, Rocket Mist, Ryan Maxwell, St. Charlie, Scoobert, Shane Antonacci, Silk Toast, Smarty Marty, Princess Useless Backwards, Super Snipper, That Blind Ginger, Totoro Bobaro's Musical Emporium, Von Can't Spell, and some sort of bear face. Next up, actually, it has one of my favorite things in the series.